Okay, and another video. This video, as the title suggests, is all about time management and hunting for the sale. Now, I'm not saying for one bit if you forget all about hunting, you can't really sharpen up your presentation and just make more sales. But what I discovered was I just was not speaking to enough people. Okay, what I would do, I would just go when I was new, certainly, and I still recommend this actually, but you have to realise there is a period where once you get your presentation absolutely spot on, you need to be smarter about finding people to talk to. Okay. So there was two key elements here, really. It's funny that the last video there's two key elements, but it's just the reason why I think there's just two key elements to most things is because if you're struggling, it's quite often just a small tweak that you have to make, and it can make all the difference. And in my case, it was like a tweak or maybe two, and I've seen that a lot. Right, it's either time management, people just walking around knocking on any old door, and then the second one is not really having a concise presentation dialed in. Right, there's maybe a third one, just not persevering through the not interested. Okay, but listen, I think that would be it. But in terms of turning yourself into a time management efficient sales hunting behemoth even, this is the key. This is something I discovered. We used to knock doors from 4 in the afternoon till 8 of an evening. Now from 4 till 6 I would notice not a lot of people home, and so I would hang around on the first street I was given, and I thought, my God, this is just crucifying me. And so I would phone my manager at 6 o'clock. He would move me, and I would always get a sale. I think, what is it? I'd always get a sale there. Why is that? And so I would talk to guys, and of course, salespeople are generally quite secretive about their tactics because, quite rightly, it takes a lot of effort to discover what you've got to do. So to just drop that in someone else's lap when you've had to go through all those hard yards, and obviously it's a very competitive environment, right? So I don't blame any salesperson for being a little bit tight-lipped. You know, a nugget or two, maybe one little nugget, one little pearl of wisdom wouldn't go astray every now and again. I get that. But here was the thing. What I noticed, whenever I phoned my manager to get me moved, there would always be one of the top guys in the van being moved. And I thought, that's strange. Going to an appointment, sort of makes sense. But I just thought to myself, between 4 and 6 o'clock, I'm given this street, and most people seem to be out. I knock on all the doors that I can possibly knock on. And now I'm making a note of all the doors that weren't home. And now I'm just hanging around for all those people to come back. And that's how I used to do it for the first few months. And I think, God blimey, no wonder I wasn't making sales. Because as soon as I changed that to, I'm given a sheet with 50 doors on. I can only speak to 10 of them, right? I've had months of knocking on the houses where there's no cars on the drive. They don't answer. I'm going to trust that. I've made a note of everybody on that street that wasn't home, and I'm going to make a point of going back to that street later if I've got time. Because here's what happens when you get moved to your second street, and it's about 6 o'clock, and everyone's home. Quite often, you're never going to see that previous street again, because you get that busy on this new street, right? And the next day, you might be in a completely different suburb. Okay. But this is time management. And in a few months' time, you'll be back in that suburb again, so you can pick it up then again, right? And this is how I used to play. This is how I used to play it. And this was what got me into being the top 5%, probably in the country, probably in the company, right? And it was as simple as that. Now, I see new guys all the time. And again, I'm contradicting myself a little bit here. But when guys are consistently getting a sale, but there's good room for improvement, one of the first things I look at is, are these new salespeople aware of the driveways they're walking down? Are they actually looking to see if there's cars on the drive? Because it's so easy to be on autopilot. You knock a door, have a bit of a brief conversation, they give you the flick. You think, oh, well, never mind, maybe the next family will be more open. And so you just walk down the next drive, not even paying attention that all there are on the drive is a couple of oil patches, no cars there. I mean, what more of a clue do you need? There's a couple of oil patches on the drive. So you know that there are normally people home. Okay. One of the other ones that I used to fall for, I used to just knock randomly, and I used to go to the house which had got no cars on the drive, but the house next door following that does have the car on the drive, you witness them sort of all getting in the car at some point while you're waiting for the people that aren't home to answer, and then you see them go out. You think, my God, I could have got them. So the key is, when you're setting the time management, is you just hit the doors that have the cars on the drive. Okay. Now, I'm going to elaborate on and touch on something I've already spoke about. In this era where people have got their tablets, management have got to understand that if they see people, because you're tracked now, but if management see people who are walking past doors and they've watched these videos, you've got to understand there's not going to be anybody home on those drives if there's no cars there's not going to be anybody home if there's no cars on the drive. Just none. Forget it. Okay. So it's up to the sales manager to manage that situation. Don't panic. If you're knocking houses during the day, my God, I've known even the best people knock 80 doors and get nothing. This happens. Okay. Now, I remember this particular person. I was a team manager at the time. And it was very hard for me to argue with this person because this person's track record definitely superseded mine. She had been knocking doors almost as long as I've been eating my own breakfast, okay? So how can you argue with that, But I would say to Lynn, I said, why didn't you just get off the street? If there's no one home, why did you walk down? We drove around the suburb. Why were you knocking on all these doors when there's clearly no one home? And it was just like, it's just how she always did it, And that just seemed absolutely bonkers to me. Now, I would have a situation when I was selling cable TV where once every 2 weeks, I would probably get in the van at the end of the night with no sales. But the following night, because of the contacts I'd gathered the previous night, I would get quite a few sales. I might get 3 or 4, maybe more, right? But I would really rarely have a day where I get no sales because I am hunting. I've turned myself into a hunter. I'm walking down these streets. I will have a zip down. This is what the manager should really do. He should drive you down the street if you're part of a team. He should drive you down the street and give you a quick eyeball of everyone that's in. And so you know who to hit. Okay? And you're making notes of who isn't home and who might be home. Right? So, and you're keeping an eyeball on your street. So that if you come out of a drive and you can look back, oh, blimey, number 15's back home now. I can get them, You've got to be totally aware, but do not ever waste your time walking down driveways when there's nobody home. Just trust it. Just back yourself, you know. Best case scenario, you're still in that suburb the following night, right? So that street that you started off on the previous night, you can hit that street now tonight in your second, in when everyone's come home. This is how we used to try and play it, okay? But depending on how the rest of the team were going, sometimes you wouldn't be in a suburb for more than one night. It was just the way it went. Bigger suburbs, absolutely, you know. I remember one of the best streets, Coronata Avenue, in West Australia. It's a huge street, so we just sort of split the street. I mean, there's thousands of houses on this street with all the cul-de-sacs coming off it. We split it into about 10 sections, if I remember, you know. And you're just constantly going around it, cherry picking the thing. So that is how you manage your time, okay? Don't let... It's a funny thing. When you're in a team and everyone's a really solid player, it's it's your team manager's job then to juggle that scenario, because this is where you'll get a lot of heat off your sales manager if he's thinking that you're just burning through allocation, okay? And that is the issue with this strategy. But I was a self-employed person. We was all self-employed, okay? And after a while, they began to trust that we weren't just cherry picking for the sake of cherry picking. This was just pure, good old common sense time management, you know. So look, I hope you get something out of this. Leave any comments, like and subscribe. Okay. So until the next time, there's no luck involved, but get out there, get knocking. Take it easy.